Hero Beat is a popular deck that originates in Edison format. The Tengu plant variant doesn't change too much in the main deck, but gains a few additional resources in the extra, mostly in the form of Exceeds monsters. The deck revolves around a level 4 beater and disruption strategy with the deck's main monster, Neos Alius, and powerful fusion monsters like Absolute Zero. Neos Alius is a Gemini monster. For those of you who are unaware, Gemini monsters are effect monsters that must be normal summoned twice to obtain their effect. So upon its first summon and while in the graveyard, Neos Alius is for all intents and purposes a vanilla monster. It's searchable via Rhoda, E-Call, and legendary prisoner of the ban list, Elemental Hero Stratos. While the effect to have a level 4 Neos can come in handy, what makes Neos Alius such a powerful threat isn't its effect, but rather cards like Gemini Spark and Hero Blast. Gemini Spark is a quick play spell that allows the player to attribute a level 4 Gemini, pop a card on the field, and then lets you draw one card. And just our luck, Neos Alius is a level 4 Gemini. Hero Blast is a trap that allows us to grab any normal hero monster from our grave and add it back to hand. In addition, if our opponent controls any monsters weaker than the added monster, we get to destroy one of them. And it just so happens that as a Gemini monster, Neos Alius counts as a normal monster when it's in the grave. And with a respectable 1900 attack, Hero Blast can clear a good number of monsters on the field, specifically tuners which happen to be on the weaker side. Combined with a wide array of staple traps and hand traps, Neos Alius is a level 4 beater from hell. While Neos Alius is a threat enough on its own, what makes the deck extra spicy is the fusions, primarily Absolute Zero and the Shining. We have 3 ways into our fusion monster: Miracle Fusion, Future Fusion, and the ever powerful, why the fuck isn't this card banned, Super Poly. It is important to note that for you newer players, Future Fusion has been eroded since the Tengu days. During Tengu plant format, Future Fusion would immediately send the materials to grave. In modern times, it's been changed to send at your next standby phase after activation. The speed makes all the difference in the playability of the card. Now onto the deck itself. Starting things off is our hero lineup. Our 1 Elemental Hero Stratos, 3 copies of Neos Alius, and 1 copy of Elemental Hero Bubbleman. Stratos is here because we can't play heroes without it, both searching our win con and acting as fuel for our fusions. Our 3 copies of Neos Alius give us the best chance to see it and make the most out of our cards Gemini Spark and Hero Blast. Our last hero Bubbleman, both being a way to draw into our deck and a hero to feed into Absolute Zero. Next up, we have the familiar sight of 3 copies of T-King. Not only does it slow down our opponent, but can operate under skill drain if we choose to run it, and with 19k attack, it rivals Neos Alius. The card is just too good this format. Our last traditional monster is Snow Maneater. With a solid 19k defense and a Maneater bug effect, this card is great for eating attacks from weaker monsters and handling beaters. In addition, its water attribute makes it great fodder for Absolute Zero. Onto the hand traps, 2 copies of Effect Veiler, which can also serve as fodder for the Shining, Gores, and our final hand trap, Honest. Honest taking advantage of Alius, T-King, and the Shining all being light attribute monsters. Onto the spell lineup, we're starting with our Surge Power, 1 copy of Rhoda, 2 copies of E-Call. You could run 3 copies of E-Call, we're just choosing not to. The Rhoda is in case you want to side a non-hero warrior monster like DD Warrior Lady. Next we have our 3 copies of Gemini Spark, an absolutely insane disruption card. Then we have 3 copies of Pod Duality. Outside of our fusions, we really don't special summon that much, and because of Super Poly, we can just do that on our opponent's turn anyways. There are no downsides to Duality in this deck. Next, our fusion spells: 1 Future Fusion, 2 Super Poly, and 3 copies of Miracle Fusion. Future Fusion for dumping material from deck to grave, Super Poly being unnegatable and taking away opponent's monsters like BLS and Trishula, and Miracle Fusion taking advantage of all of our cards in grave. Rounding out our spells is our power trio of Monster Reborn, Dark Hole, and Heavy Storm. Onto our traps, 2 copies of Hero Blast. Not only does this card recycle our resources, but allows us to clear weaker tuners off the board and make our Gemini Spark that much more threatening. Next up is the Solemn Trio to just say no to our opponent. Our 2 Mass Destruction traps, Mere Force and Torrential Tribute. And our last trap, the ever-broken Trap Dust Shoot for control. Moving on to the extra deck, we're starting with our Synchro lineup just to get them out of the way since they're not the main focus of the deck. Librarian, Catastor, Black Rose, Stardust, and Colossal all are summonable by using our Lone Tuner and Effect Veiler. They function as options when we lack access to our fusion cards, or when we need a way to clear monsters we steal from our opponent's field via cards like Enemy Controller. Our 2 Exceeds monsters, Utopia and Steel Swarm Roach, to take advantage of our level 4 monsters. And then onto the bulk of the extra deck, our fusions. Starting things off are our 2 non-hero fusions, Dragon Knight and Chimera Tech. Dragon Knight being a way for us to deal with synchro dragons like Stardust since Great Tornado isn't legal this format, and Chimera Tech being a way to clear powerful machines via contact fusion. Of course, the Cyber Dragons are in the side deck and not in the main deck. And finally, onto our Elemental Heroes. 1 copy of Nova Master and Gaia to take out the Earth and Fire monsters. Nova giving us a draw for every monster it runs over, and Gaia a way to mess with enemy attack stats. 2 copies of the Shining, our primary beat stick and a way to recycle our banished heroes. And finally, God's Strongest Warrior, the absolutely insane Absolute Zero. This monster is a complete menace. Not only does it have a respectable 25k attack, it has a built-in Dark Hole / Heavy Storm effect when it leaves the field. And because it activates Engrave, it plays around Skill Drain. This card is beyond busted. Hero Beat is a great control strategy and one of the strongest decks in the format. Between its low-cost main deck monsters and its stacked extra deck, it's exactly what you need to get your game on. Till next time, peace.